If you're studying A-level philosophy and ethics, subscribe. I'm covering the entire course on this channel. We're now on the third lecture in the Situation Ethics series, and this one completes the theoretical framework. In the first lecture, we established the historical context, met Joseph Fletcher, and we placed agapē at the center of the theory as the only moral absolute. In the second, we examine the four working principles, the practical orientations that guide how the situationist approaches a moral decision. But knowing how to approach a situation is not the same as knowing what love actually is. And that is the question that the 6 fundamental principles answers. If the 4 working principles are the compass, the 6 fundamental principles are the philosophical definition of north. They tell you precisely what agapē means, how it operates, and what it demands. So, this covering OCR, AQA, Edexcel, by the end you will be able to name, define, and evaluate all 6 propositions. And more importantly, you will know how to deploy them in essays with the kind of precision that earns the highest marks. So where are we in the series? Before we go further, let us locate ourselves clearly within the series, because understanding where you are in an argument matters as much as understanding the argument itself. You've already covered 3 foundational areas. First, the historical context, the post-war world, the 1960s revolution, and Fletcher's place within the Christian ethical tradition. Second, agapē and the 4 working principles, love as the only absolute, and pragmatism, relativism, positivism, and personalism as the practical orientations that serve it. This lecture, the 6 propositions, is the 3rd stage, and it completes the theoretical framework by giving love its philosophical content. And there is a 4th stage that's coming, the evaluative framework, where we bring everything together and examine how the complete theory performs under scrutiny. But we cannot reach that stage without first understanding what the 6 propositions actually claim. And think of it this way. You now have the foundations and the structure. This lecture is where we fit the final components that make the whole building stand. Before we examine the 6 propositions themselves, we need to be absolutely clear about how they relate to the 4 working principles. This distinction is one that separates good essays from excellent ones, and it's one that most students never make explicitly. The 4 working principles, pragmatism, relativism, positivism, and personalism, govern how you approach a moral situation. They are practical orientations. They tell you what kind of thinker to be when you walk into a dilemma. The 6 fundamental principles operate at a different level entirely. They are propositional. They define what love actually is and how it functions. They are Fletcher's attempt to give agapē philosophical precision, to move it from a vague sentiment into a rigorous moral concept rooted in Christian theology. And the distinction is precise. The 4 working principles tell you how to reason. The 6 fundamental principles tell you what you are reasoning toward. And examiners reward students who can make the distinction explicitly. If you can write something like, while the 4 working principles govern the situationist's approach to decision-making, the 6 fundamental principles define the content of the loving act itself. You are demonstrating a depth of understanding that goes beyond simple description and earns high AO1 marks on all of the 3 exam boards. Well, the first 3 propositions define what love is at its most fundamental level. Let's look at the first one. Proposition 1. Only love is intrinsically good. This is one of the most philosophically radical claims in the entire theory, and it deserves to be treated as such. Fletcher is saying that nothing else, not truth, not justice, not honesty, not chastity, not loyalty, his absolute moral value in itself. These things are only good when love requires them. The technical term here is intrinsic good, something good in and of itself, independently of consequences. Fletcher is saying that agapē alone qualifies. Everything else is at best instrumentally valuable. And the implications are striking. There are situations, Fletcher is arguing, where truth-telling is not good, where chastity is not good, where loyalty is not good. And in those situations, if love demands something different, love wins. Proposition 2 is love is the ruling norm. Agapē replaces all other norms, including law and scripture, when they conflict with love. No rule, no commandment or tradition overrides the loving response, not even the Bible. And Fletcher is not saying scripture is worthless, he is saying it is not absolute. When the letter of the law produces unloving outcomes, the spirit of love must prevail. And this is what shocked many Christians in 1966, and it is still the most theologically provocative claim in the theory. Proposition 3, love and justice are the same. And this is the proposition most frequently misunderstood in essays, so pay careful attention. Students often assume that love and justice are in tension, that love is warm and personal while justice is cold and institutional. Fletcher rejects this entirely. Justice, he argues, is love distributed across society. When you apply agapē not just to the individual in front of you, but to everyone affected by a decision, you are doing justice. Love applied at scale becomes justice. They're not different things. They're the same thing operating at different scales. The second group of 3 propositions shifts from defining love to describing how it operates in practice. So previously we were looking at the nature of love, now we're looking at how love acts. Proposition 4. Love wills the neighbour's good, whether we like them or not. This proposition does something philosophically crucial. It separates agapē from every other form of love. Agapē is not sentimental. It's not affection. It's not a warm feeling towards someone you happen to like. It's a deliberate act of will directed at the genuine well-being of another person, regardless of whether you like them, know them, or have any emotional connection to them at all. This is the love of enemy as well as friend. Now, for OCR and AQA students particularly, this proposition is vital because it directly addresses what kind of ethical theory situation ethics actually is. Fletcher is not proposing a theory based on emotion. He is proposing a theory based on willed commitment to the good of persons. Proposition 5, only the end justifies the means. Fletcher is saying that the morality of an action is determined entirely by whether it achieves a loving end. There are no means that are intrinsically wrong. Any action can in principle be justified if the end it serves is genuinely agapē. And this is Fletcher's most controversial proposition, and the one most frequently examined. We're going to spend dedicated time on it on the next slide. Proposition 6. Love's decisions are made situationally, not prescriptively. Moral decisions cannot be made in advance. You cannot know, sitting in an armchair, what love will require in a situation you have not yet entered. You must be present, fully informed of the particular circumstances, and reasoning from within the situation. And this is the final and perhaps most fundamental proposition of all, because it explains why situation ethics must be situation ethics. The theory is not just situationist by preference, it is situationist by necessity. Now let us give Proposition 5 the sustained attention that it demands. Under the microscope, only the end justifies the means. This phrase has a long and troubled history in Western thought. It's most commonly associated with the Machiavelli, the idea that political rulers may use any means, including deception and violence, to secure their ends. And Fletcher takes this provocative formulation and gives it a radical Christian reinterpretation. The end that justifies the means is not power, not national interest. It is agapē alone. But the objections are powerful, and you must know them thoroughly. Moral corruption. If any act can be justified by a loving intention, where does it stop? Could torture be justified if it saved many lives? Could systematic deception become routine if we convince ourselves it is loving? The theory appears to open a door that, once open, can only be kept from swinging wide the moral seriousness of the individual making the decision. And that is entirely subjective. There's uncertain consequences. Fletcher's framework requires us to predict outcomes, but we cannot reliably do this. History is full of well-intentioned decisions that produced catastrophe. If the justification of means depends on the loving end being achieved, what happens when good intentions cause harm? And then there's the self-deception. This is perhaps the most psychologically penetrating objection. Human beings are extraordinarily skilled at convincing themselves that what they want to do is also what love requires. We dress self-interest as agapē. We call convenient decisions compassionate. And Fletcher's framework offers no external check on this tendency. But Fletcher's response is essentially this. The end must genuinely be agapē. Not disguised self-interest, not convenience. The situationist must exercise real moral seriousness. And his most interesting countermove, no other ethical system escapes the problem of means and ends entirely. Kant, natural law, utilitarianism, all of them face versions of this problem. Fletcher is simply the one honest enough to state it explicitly rather than conceal it behind a rule. Now, whether you find that response satisfying is exactly the kind of evaluative judgment examiners want you to make. Now, this slide brings the entire theoretical framework together, and it's worth pausing here before moving to evaluation, because seeing the whole picture at once is important. You now have two interlocking sets of principles. The four working principles: pragmatism, relativism, positivism, and personalism. They tell you how to approach every moral situation. The six fundamental principles: love alone is intrinsically good. Love is the ruling norm. Love and justice are the same. Love wills the neighbour's good. Only the end justifies the means. Decisions are made situationally. And that tells you what love is and how it demands to be expressed. Now, together, they form a complete decision-making framework. Every moral question is answered by asking, what does agapē require here? Approached through pragmatism, relativism, positivism, and personalism, and guided by the six propositions that define what genuine love actually means. And this is what makes situation ethics a theory rather than simply a feeling. Fletcher has given love a structure. Whether that structure is strong enough to bear the philosophical weight placed on it is the evaluative question, and it's the one your essays must answer. So let us now evaluate honestly. The strengths. The 6 propositions give love genuine philosophical precision. This is not a theory of vague good intentions. Fletcher has worked hard to define what agapē is, how it relates to justice, how it operates in the face of law and scripture, and how it demands willed commitment rather than a mere feeling. The theory is also theologically coherent. Fletcher draws directly from the Christian tradition, the teaching of Jesus to love unconditionally, the Pauline understanding of agapē, Augustine's maxim. He is not importing secular philosophy, he is arguing that Christianity, properly understood, has always been about this. And the theory embodies radical compassion. It refuses to allow rules to trump persons. In a world where institutions have repeatedly used rules to harm individuals, a theory that always asks, but what does love require here, has genuine moral seriousness. But there are weaknesses. Proposition 5 remains the Achilles heel. The end justifies the means is a principle that historically has been used to justify almost anything. Fletcher's insistence that the end must genuinely be agapē is important, but it relies entirely on the moral seriousness of the individual, and there's no external check. Agapē also remains difficult to define consistently enough for reliable application. Different situationists' reasoning in good faith may reach opposite conclusions in identical circumstances, and the theory therefore has no mechanism for adjudicating between them. And finally, the subjectivity problem runs right through the entire framework, where Kant gives you a universability test and natural law gives you primary precepts, situation ethics gives you love and trusts you to know what that means. Now for Berkeley, that trust is misplaced. For Fletcher, it's the only form of moral reasoning worth of persons. Let me now be direct about how you use this in essays across all 3 boards. For AO1, name and define all 6 propositions. Distinguish them clearly from the 4 working principles, and link each proposition back to agapē precisely. Examiners are looking for the specific language of each proposition here, not a general description of the theory. For AO2, your critical focus should be on proposition 5. Use the self-deception objection, the uncertain consequences objection, and the moral corruption objection. Present Fletcher's response and evaluate whether it is sufficient. Then compare with another theory, like natural law or Kantian ethics. If we think about being against natural law, comparing it against natural law, Proposition 1 directly challenges the idea of intrinsically wrong acts. Natural law holds that some acts are always wrong regardless of the consequences. Fletcher says nothing is wrong in itself, only unlove is wrong. If we compare it against Kantian ethics, Proposition 6 directly challenges universability. Kant demands that moral rules apply in all cases without exception. And Fletcher says no rule can be universalized without distorting the moral reality it was meant to address. And compared against utilitarianism, Proposition 4 insists that love is willed, personal, and directed at the individual. It's not a calculation of aggregate benefit. The person in front of you is not a unit of utility. Now, there are some must-know terms for all of the boards. And here I would say they should be agapē, unconditional willed love, intrinsic good, good in itself, and teleological, the end, the outcome focus. You also want to perhaps add the ruling norm, situational relativism, proposition 5, means and ends, self-deception objection, and Berkeley's objection. Before you close this video, 4 things to lock in permanently. First, 2 sets, 2 levels. The 4 working principles govern approach. The 6 fundamental principles define the content of love. Know the difference, state it explicitly, and you immediately demonstrate depth of understanding. Second, love alone is absolute. Everything else, truth, justice, law, scripture, is only good when love requires it. Nothing rivals agapē as an intrinsic good. Everything else is instrumental. Third, proposition 5 is your essay focus. Only the end justifies the means is Fletcher's most contested and most examined claim. Master the 3 objections: moral corruption, uncertain consequences, self-deception. Master Fletcher's response. Reach your own reasoned judgment and state it clearly. And fourth, situational, not prescriptive. Moral decisions cannot be prepackaged. Every situation demands a fresh, loving, contextually informed response. This is not a weakness of the theory. For Fletcher, it is its defining virtue.